You're listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner, your source for investing made easy. Here's Andy Tanner.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast where investing is made simple. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. Welcome. It's always my habit to congratulate you for tuning in because there's many people that are they'll spend some time watching Netflix. Nothing wrong with that. But there's also people that spend time in personal development, getting informed and learning. And so, again, congratulations for joining me today. As always, we're excited about our guest. This guest is it's very emotional for me because he's a personal friend. I think I've known him for over 30 years now. We met when we were teenagers, and I'm going to introduce him a little bit. But first of all, Bryan Thayer. Welcome back to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. This is your second visit with us, so thank you.
Wow, I feel so honored. Thank you.
You and I have been great friends. Our wives are friends, and we've known each other for years. And you're not just a friend; you're a confidant. The reason I asked Bryan to be on here today is he's one of my greatest mentors. It's been very emotional for me, Bryan. Primarily I teach. Stock investing and options investing. It's been very emotional to try to teach because so many people are hurting during coronavirus and this difficult time for our human family. And so being able to reach out to a good friend like you who I've always looked up to and looked at as a model of not just in business, but just how to live and treat other people. So I thank you for your mentorship, and I know that comes from the heart. So thanks, buddy.
Oh, man, I feel the same way about you, Andy.
So Bryan Thayer is the CEO and founder of Pixingo, speaker, author. I love his 2 books. They're really simple. They're easy to read. I mean, his type of book is you can get on an airplane and read it, on the flight. So when they fly the friendly skies again, we can get it, or by your fireplace or whatever it is you want to do. But his books are Life Leaves Clues, which is just a wonderful, it's wisdom literature. And then he's the best networker I know, and he has the book, The 1 Minute Networker. And so we'll tell you where, if you like what we have to say today, we'll tell you at the end where you can pick up his books and do some reading. His company, Pixingo, it just fits you, Bryan, because it's about lifting up people. It's a service that's virtual, that if you want to send something to somebody to brighten their day, whether it be a card or a gift or just something that you want to brighten someone's day with, you go to pixingo.com. It's about people, photos and cards and, just wonderful stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about how you've grown that business. But what we're going to focus on first today is networking and the idea of this. So, Bryan, this. I have a good friend that is in the real estate business, and he gets a conference together. He teaches real estate investing. He has a big conference in Vegas every year. And he says, Andy, come speak at this conference. And I usually go speak on stocks. And about 5 years ago, he said, Andy, I want you to give a talk on how to network in business. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that, do I? He goes, yeah, you got a great network. And I went immediately to the 1 Minute Networker, and I called Bryan. And I said, Bryan, I got to speak to about 5,000 people in Vegas on networking. I think I've done a little bit of it, but what would you say? And it's a talk I don't like to give because I wear my emotions on my sleeves and I get teary-eyed in front of these people every time I give it because it's so poignant in our how we network in our human family. So talk a little bit about that, just networking in general, and then I'll reveal why I think that's an important topic for now. But talk to me about networking in general.
Well, this is such an important topic right now because a lot of people, especially, it depends on when you listen to this podcast, but people go in and out of this concept or this feeling of scarcity versus abundance. And I love the concept of networking because you can quickly realize how wealthy you are in so many ways. I'm talking about both, financially and spiritually and emotionally. And through your connections, that's one of the areas where people easily overlook how wealthy they are. Their connections, the people that are in their lives and the resources that are available to them. And I don't mean, Andy, like what can they do for me? I'm just talking about the whole support system in general. Our network is unbelievable. And it's so easy for us to take it for granted, right? Because it's with us every day. And you don't wake up every morning going, man, let me think about how many people I know in my life. You usually don't. You usually go, what have I got to get accomplished? And you think it's all on you. But really, if you utilize your network, you realize that you're just a small part of it. It's actually, things are actually moving for you right now if you can learn to utilize your network.
Let's explore that idea of scarcity versus abundance, because right now part of the panic of this crisis is people are worried about resources. We're scared about the amount of ventilators that are in our country. We're scared of the amount of masks and protective equipment, hospital beds. Many people have lost their jobs. Largest jobless claims ever in the history of our country filed for unemployment. So money is scarce. And so the fear that people feel really is out of what you said, this scarcity, and yet you're telling me there could be abundance out there. Talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the best thing you can do right now is to keep moving. What will happen it's very common for people, is they'll start freezing. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea to apply for unemployment, because that is probably a very smart move for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's also the other move, the second move, or the first move, whatever that is start networking yourself. Start getting out there and looking for the opportunities. I want to share with you a really quick story that is probably really important for a lot of people to be listening to right now, if I can. They did a study back east at a university, and here was the study. They said, listen, we want you to rank yourself between 1 and 10 of how lucky of a person you see yourself as. So rank yourself between 1 and 10. People's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 10. After they did that, they said, okay, now here's the second part of the study. It's pretty simple. We're going to give you a copy of the New York Times. And all we want you to do is count the number of headlines in the New York Times. And when you're done, turn your number into us, turn the paper into us. And if you get the number right, you get $100. It's pretty simple. Okay, so people ranked themselves. They got the newspaper. Then they counted the headlines and turned it in. Well, what they didn't know, Andy, was inside, throughout that newspaper, they planted this simple sentence. And it said this: if you read this, the study is over. Collect an additional $150. Okay, so now you want to know what the results were?
Yeah.
Okay, here are the results. Those participants, if you will, who by and large rank themselves as unlucky or not so lucky, collected $100. Participants who ranked themselves as a 7, 8, 9, or 10 on the scale of luckiness, 80% of them, Andy, 80% of them collected the additional $150.
Interesting. Self-concept.
Right. Yeah. So what we're learning from this is some people only look at what's directly in front of them, or actually what's placed in front of them. However, lucky people who think more abundantly, look elsewhere. They look a little farther, look beyond that, or to the left or to the right, or you see what I'm getting at? So it is such a strong message right now for people to realize, what could you not be looking at right now? Maybe you need to turn off the media or the news. Just take a pause, if you will, and start looking somewhere else and thinking a little bit differently.
I'll tell you, the reason I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on the podcast, because I know my schedule and your schedule, it gets full in times like this, right? I mean, I've been busier trying to answer emails and help and people reaching out than I've ever had. But I remember when this happened for me, as I'm a big NBA fan, I was watching the Utah Jazz play the Oklahoma City, and they pulled them off the floor. That was on a Wednesday night. And that was that's when the world changed. That's where I remember, and I looked at my wife, I said, this just got real. They just pulled these players off the floor. Within 24 hours, they canceled the NBA, they canceled the NCAA, all sports, and then the next day, they shut down my kid's school midday because Rudy Gobert had visited with some of the kids in the school district. So we locked down we were the first district in my state to lock down and get the kids out. And my immediate reflex, and I get a little emotional if you forgive me, but my immediate reflex was, what you've taught me is, I'm like, who needs help? And who's out there in my network that needs me, and who can I ask help? You know, I'm not going to be prideful. Who can I ask help for? So the book, The 1 Minute Networker, is really important, and I like in there the Stanley Milgram example, and all this really does is I think it really helps people to realize how deep and how connected we really are. Like you talked about, you know, looking in different places, and the reason I think that Stanley Milgram experience is important is it helps people realize, wow, there's probably pretty big resources for me to invest in and glean. Could you just, like 30-second version or 1 minute, or however long you want to take, talk about Stanley Milgram and that experiment of degrees and separation and stuff like that?
Yeah, those are interesting terms. So social scientist Stanley Milgram, his theory was that the world's population was all connected to each other by no more than 6 degrees of separation. Or 6 sets of acquaintance, I should say. The 6 degrees of separation probably came more from the Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, that came from the after. I played that with 5,000 people before, by the way, and it was incredible. So
you probably ought to quickly tell us what that experience was like. I mean, 5,000 people. What did you do?
Well, actually, what we did is I put stuff up on the screen of, you know, one actor, and then put 4 in between, or 5 boxes that were blank, and Kevin Bacon, and I said, go for it. And they had to, as a group, I said, you can use your phones or whatever, and they had to fill in those 6 degrees between Kevin. Every year I've done someone different. Mm-hmm. And then what I did is I took it to the next level. I said, how about you and say the President of the United States? Or how about you and Oprah? Or how about you? And we started to try to do it with themselves and to see if they could really find that connection, because it's there.
Yeah.
You know, it's there. And so as you think about coronavirus, someone passes away in China, there's only 5-6 people between you and that person that lost their life.
Right.
You know, so, and it was interesting because Stanley Milgram found that. He sent out the letter, and, you know, it went off, and he found that he didn't never use the term degree of separation, but he did find that on average, you can go to the mountains of China and they know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows you. Basically, is how that works.
Wow.
And the reason that context is important is, well, I'll tell you what it meant to me, Bryan, is I have this neighbor that was beloved. He passed away a few years ago, but he's the guy that taught me how to throw baseball. He was my neighbor. I had no confidence, and he put me on the team, and he taught me how to hit. Great baseball fan, and he was a landscaper, and he loved the earth. And he had a garden, and every once in a while I'd go over there and help him hoe his garden, or hoe his, his flower beds or whatever. And I used to work for him when I was a kid doing landscaping, and we'd be hoeing along, and he'd be in the yard, he'd say, Andrew, I wish we'd be hoeing along here, and just maybe we run into a little vein of gold, enough to set me up for the rest of my life, and he'd say stuff like that. And so then we'd hoe faster, and he'd say, Andrew, I wish I just hoed along here, and like old Judd Clampett, maybe I just strike oil. So we'd hoe deeper, and I thought about that if you did have gold right in your backyard, if the gold was there, like the Stanley Milgram's experiment says it there, if the answers are there and the resources are there, if I did find gold in my yard, by doggone it, would I buy a pick and a shovel and I'd start mining? And Bryan, there's a guy named Chris Martinson who I've also had on the podcast. He's a futurist. He prepares for Armageddon and stuff. And we were at a conference in a book study with him, and he said something that struck me, and it made me think of you. We were talking about what's the best thing to buy right now. You're talking about the scarcity. God, do I buy gold? Do I buy real estate? Should I buy stocks because they're low? Or should I hoard cash? Or is toilet paper what I need? The scarcity you talked about is like, what do I need? What do I need? What do I need? And I raised my hand and I asked Chris, I said, Chris, what is your greatest asset? And he didn't even miss a beat. He looked me right in the eye and said, it's my community. It's my neighbors. That, if you have a strong network of people, you can find safety in that if people band together. And I thought of you. I thought, Bryan Thayer is the guy I know better than anyone else that understands that right now, perhaps your greatest asset is your neighbor and people and what you can do for them, what they can do. So if the Stanley Milgram experiment is true, people helping people right now is more important than the Fed writing these checks, or as important as the Fed. What do you want, $2 trillion of stimulus, or do you want people? So that's why I thought about that. And, how do you, when I think about investing, and maybe you can segue into this with networking your network, I don't know, but when you think about investing, a lot of people think about what they own instead of what they put in. My kids are an investment. I put stuff into them. My little basketball team is an investment. I put stuff into them. Stocks are an investment for me. I put money into them. Time. I put time into practicing my piano. That's an investment. And so when you look at the people around you as a potential investment, there's the give and take of, I get a return on investment, but I invest first. Usually investing means no free lunch, no lottery winnings. We put in first, then we get back later. Could you talk about your thoughts on that, and how to, let's say there are these people out there that I don't know that can help me, that I can help. And you talked about looking beyond the problems of the moment and the abundance that's there. How do I harvest? I mean, what do I do? How do I make that practical?
Oh man, those are a great set of questions.
Heavy. Sorry, I just threw like 5 baseballs at you.
So good.
Just talk about the practicality. In practice, the practicality. If this is a great idea, there's a huge abundance, huge resources for people. How do I make this happen for me?
I remember years and years ago, my wife and I taught a Sunday school class, and while we were teaching this, these are little kids, by the way, and these are like 5 and 6 year olds, and we asked them this tough question. I can't even remember what it was, but it was a question we knew was going to make them pause, and I'll never forget the answer that one of the little girls said. She said, after all the kids said, I don't know, one of the little girls, she said, let me think what I know. And I never forgot that, because she was so wise in her answer. Let me think what I know. And so everyone has those moments where you just kind of feel frozen, or like, how am I going to get out of this? Or what do I have to offer? Or who's going to help me? Those kind of thoughts, right? And the first question, I think, it'd be really good for you to just take a moment and just say, let me think what I know, and who do I know? Because when you start to think like that, you've got to remember this, or either you believe this. Everybody listening to me right now, either you believe it or you don't. And one of these days, you've got to decide. You can't hang in the middle. We are all connected, just like Andy said a few moments ago. We are connected. There are things happening that you cannot comprehend. We are connected. I will just tell you this right now, and Andy knows the story, and I will not go into detail because it's kind of personal between us, but I remember a very tough day in my life where I needed someone to call me. I needed some help. And I remember on my way to the office, I was really thinking about myself at that moment. It was consuming me. And I'm walking in, or actually before I got to the office, I stopped, got some gas, got myself a drink, a Diet Coke. And as I'm in there about to get my drink, I noticed. So I looked beyond the headlines, right? I noticed there was another gentleman in that gas station who I could just tell, because we are connected, that he was not right. He was not in a happy place. And I didn't really realize at the moment, but I guess he was applying for a job at the gas station, and you could just tell that he was not doing so well. Anyway, I'm heading out to my car, and he'd already left by this time. I got in my car, and I look over to my right, and I can still see him there. He was sitting on the curb. And I got out of my car, and I sat next to him, and I helped him with a couple things. And I got back in my car where I had that. I'd forgotten about my troubles because I saw somebody else. And that very day, hours later, is when Andy Tanner called me and helped me with something that I absolutely needed that day. And do you see how that works? It's probably, some of you will kind of go, oh, that's all luck, and that's just circumstance. I don't believe that at all. I don't. If you are in a spot right now, if I could give you the best advice, I'd say go help 10 people. You probably won't even get to 10. You probably won't. You'll get through a few, and then someone's going to end up helping you. That's just how it works. And you've got to start thinking like that, because I have been through it many, many, many times. And I can testify to that, Andy. We are connected. We need each other. we help each other. When we start worrying only about ourselves, then we start to back ourselves into this corner, this cul-de-sac, if you will, and there's no outlet. You've got to get out of there and start connecting to other people.
It's such a beautiful thing, Bryan. The frustration people have, and I get into this rut once in a while, is, well, what can I do for someone? I'm just Andy. What can I do? I don't, my brother-in-law is a doctor. He's risking his life on the front lines. He knows exactly what he can do. My other brother is a police officer. He's out there every day fighting as a hero. He knows exactly what he do. Well, what can I do sitting here? But asking the question is critical. In your book, the 1 Minute Networker, you talk about someone who I just love. He's a mentor to Robert Kiyosaki, is Bucky Fuller. And if you don't mind, Bryan, I'd like to share that story from your book and a little bit about his life. A lot of people don't know who Buckminster Fuller is. And he's in the early 1900s. He was born in the late 1800s. He's in Chicago. And it's tough times. And he doesn't have any heat. And it's almost like Jimmy Stewart in A Wonderful Life. He's down on his luck, and his daughter dies. And he feels the weight of that death, saying, well, I should, she had pneumonia. I couldn't save her because I couldn't afford to heat the house. And he's down. And he goes out in the streets of Chicago, and he goes up on a bridge over Lake Michigan. And he's down. And he's thinking about it. He's thinking about taking that step.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people get to the edge like that, whether it's losing a job or whether it's the divorce or whatever it is that puts you in that situation. He was right at the edge. He's looking down in the icy water. And I'm not an expert on the supernatural. I don't claim to know a lot about that stuff, but it comes to him, and it says, you don't belong to you. You belong to the universe. And he said, your purpose may forever be obscure to you, but you can rest assured that if you dedicate your experience to helping others, to the betterment of others, you can rest assured your purpose may be ever obscure to you, but you'll fulfill it if you help other people. And John Denver was a good friend of his as he got older, and John Denver wrote a song called What One Man Can Do, and that's the question. What can one person do to help and lift? And you think about mining that gold of your database. I go through my Rolodex, and I just did this, when this hit. And I just went through name by name by name, and I'm like, what can I do for this person? Is there anything I can do for this person? Is there anything I can do? And I was frustrated with how many thoughts that I thought, well, I don't know what I could do to help this person. I don't know. I was frustrated. But I'll tell you, there were 2 or 3 that clicked. And so I was able to make some phone calls, and it's amazing what that exercise did for me cathartically, looking at the uncertainty so many people face. Any thoughts on that? What made you put Buckminster Fuller in the book? What was your thought?
Well, you nailed it right there. I mean, during the point of that story, he made a decision.
Yeah.
He made a definitive decision to have an attitude of abundance. Where he would devote the rest of his life not to earning a living, but to living in a manner where he would bless the lives of as many people as possible. That was a huge commitment, and it's something that he kept. It was a promise that he kept, and that is what's so powerful. It's hard to make that leap of faith when you are. It's amazing that he actually did, if you think about it, Andy, where he was, what he was going through, where he actually said, I'm going to make this commitment, my goal is now to bless as many lives as possible.
And he did. So we have a silly awkwardness, a social awkwardness about reaching out to people to either ask for help, or for me, it's even tougher reaching out for help to offer. For example, Bryan, right now, this is really tough for me. And so I want your advice on this, and I want you to help me with some of the first impressions and first contacts. I deal with money, and I know exactly what I'm doing with the market right now. I know exactly what I feel I want to do, and I've done it, and I've made some moves I'm very, very happy about. So immediately I think, I want to tell the world, this is how you invest in a crisis. I know how Warren Buffett thinks in this, I think. I can't put words in his mouth. But I'll tell you, when I thought about some of the people I know, the topic of money is just a really weird subject. I thought, hey, they know what I do. If they wanted help, they'd ask. But maybe they don't know what I know. And so I thought, well, what do I know? Let me think what I know. This is what I know. who can I help? Can you help me with first impressions? Can you help me with that initial reaching out? Any clues or tips practically you can give me? Like if I want to reach out to someone, even if maybe it's the person at the gas station like you did, maybe it's someone I already know. How do you broach subjects of asking for help or offering help in the first impression or the first contact?
Well, I'm going to give you both angles. There's the asking for help, and then there's the offering of help. Those are two, 1-hour courses.
Ladies and gentlemen, www.bryanthayer.com. And remember, Bryan and Thayer, both with a Y, BRYANTHAYER. So Bryan with a Y. So
that was not planned. That's so funny. Okay, let's first talk about asking for help or this whole idea, because there's a good chance, Andy, there's a lot of people listening that have their own business.
Yeah.
And they're wondering how do I get top of mind again? Because this little pause we had in our economy created a real gap, and people probably have forgotten about me or don't even know I'm in business still, things like that. And so you've got to get out, put on your networking hat, and you've got to start creating some conversations. Okay, so I'm gonna give you just a couple quick tips for sake of time on really the first 60 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
Because here's one thing you got to know: confused people never say yes. So you've got to be very good at helping them do one thing. And I'm going to I'm going to give her the credit. Sam Horn. If you don't know who Sam Horn is, you can look her up. She's a fantastic author and speaker. But she has said that you've got to get people, and this is a great visual, to raise their eyebrows. Right? The whole idea here is not to end the conversation. It is to start the conversation. So when you're having conversation with people, you want them to ask questions and want to know more. You don't want to be a person who goes, well, this is what I do, and be done. So you got to be very good at creating this intrigue, if you will. Be very good at intrigue. Think of it like this. You'll remember this rhyme. If you want to succeed, you must intrigue. Okay, So there you've got it.
Good rhyme.
Okay,
there's a raise the eyebrows.
You did. Okay. So here's what you've got to do, and it's a really powerful formula. There's just a couple things you need to know. One is be very good at asking did you know questions. Did you know this? Do you know that? Do you know this? Are you aware of this? Okay, so what I'm doing when I'm talking to someone who I think actually could network me or could benefit from my business as I'm creating that intrigue. Did you know that? And then you say something that's going on in this country that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Okay, set part number 2. Your second thing is to say, well, imagine this. Imagine if there was a solution. Imagine if there was a way. Imagine, use the word imagine. So first step, did you know? Second one, imagine. The third one, the final one is, I've created, I've started, I've opened a business that. Then you just tell them how you solved it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm already racing through my mind about how I'm going to apply that because there's so many things I know are happening right now in the markets. And I mean, hey, Bryan, did you know that investors like Warren Buffett, they're actually getting paid to pick their own prices that they want lower than they are right now? Did you know that?
Yeah.
See, is that kind of it?
That's it. I'll give you an example with my company. Okay. So people say, what do you do? Right. And instead of me saying, I do this, I say, well, when you get an email or a text and you only pay attention to it for a few seconds and then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to say, yeah. I'm gonna ask you a question that I got a 99.9% chance you're gonna say yeah. That's step number 1. Number 2 is this is what I say. I say, well, my company solves that problem by keeping you in front of your customers and your contacts for about 17 days, and it only costs about 10 cents a day. Now, are you intrigued?
That very much. Well, how do you do that?
Right. Exactly.
That's fantastic.
And then I tell them about my company, and then the commercial really would continue on with we send personal greeting cards for people and businesses that help you stay top of mind for about $1. And then I find out really quickly if they're meant to be using my service, or if it's just like, I watch those eyebrows, or on the phone, I listen for the next question, right?
Yeah.
So I get really good at those 3 steps, and now I'm off and running. And my goal is to do that as often as possible. As often as possible. If people don't know you're in business, Andy, you are not in business. Do not fool yourself. Mm-hmm. Just because you have a great looking website or a nice brochure, a good looking business card, or even a killer business that really by all means should be crushing it. If you are not talking about networking with those 3 steps, you're not in business. I'm sorry.
It's what you talk about in your books being top of mind, for sure.
Yes.
So, in the scarcity and abundance idea, these are ways to interact with the first 30 seconds with someone, the first contact or impression. We talked about mining the gold of your network with service, investing in them before harvest. One of the things that I love about our association is you're one of the guys that always seems to say the right thing. I know none of us are perfect in that, but words are powerful right now. As you watch the TV and you hear different rhetoric and the things different say, words are not to be used, certainly not to be used flippantly right here. And I know you've talked a lot about the power of words. Anything on that for us?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, you have got to be so careful with the words that you use. I'm gonna help you eliminate. Well, if I were to ask you right now, and this is just for everybody to think about. I'm not asking for Annie to give me the answer or anybody else, but if I were to ask you, what is one word that you wish you could eliminate from your life? What would that word be? And I also want you to be aware, once you've gotten rid of it, if I could wave the magic wand, if I could wave it, it will be gone from your life. You will no longer have anything to do with that word. What would that word be? Think about that. That just puts in context. Because if you said the word zebras, I don't think there's any need for zebras to be the word zebra to be in my life. I hardly ever use it, blah, blah, blah. I want you to realize you will never see a zebra again in your life if you say that. As soon as I wave my magic wand, the zebra in your world is gone forever. Now, do you realize how important words are? Mm. And if I also asked you, Andy and everybody else, what is one word that you cannot live without, that you must have? If someone were to take a word from your life at their choosing, this one word would not be on the shelf. It is your word for you to use, and you will never, ever lose it. It is your most favorite word. What word would that be? Those 2 questions help you realize, hey, wait a minute, words mean a lot to me. And if they mean a lot to me, trust me, they mean a lot to other people. So a few well-chosen words can seriously change the world. You could change your life. You could change the life of someone that you dearly love and care for. A few words can make all the difference. Be careful with your words. If I could wave my wand and say, listen, I'd like for you guys to get rid of this word. Here's one word I would love for you to get rid of, and it's the word just. I'm just calling to let you know. I just wanted to remind you, how's your life going? Well, we're just about, this and that and the other. Just is such a junky word. If I could help you, just notice, and by the way, as soon as you start paying attention to how often you use the word just, watch how that opens up to you some other words that you can get rid of. Be very, very good with your words in your emails, in your texts, in the cards, of course, that you send to people. Yeah. and as you speak to your friends, think a little bit deeper, a little bit more carefully about those words. And you have also, Andy, if you were to select some of the most dear friends in your life, you will find out that they tend to say the right things to you when you need it. It's powerful. Sure. So
it's fantastic.
Some things about words.
I love hanging out. We always say we have to get together more often than we do. But we are interested in the same things, and we've just known each other for so long. It's just good to have a conversation with you. BryanThayer.com. You spell Bryan with the Y, BryanThayer. And there's so much more we could talk about. I just feel I just feel the fear out there. I can feel it. I guess it's because I'm so attached to the markets and I understand the fear index and I can feel the fear. And I will just tell you that if you're feeling fear right now, and if money is not a resource you have, and gold is not a resource you have, and you're feeling that scarcity and you want to move into abundance, my suggestion is your greatest asset might be who you can help and who you can receive help from in your network. And getting that ball rolling is not something I'm good at, but it is something my buddy Bryan is the best at. And so I was talking to you. I says, do you have any resources? Where would a person start? I want to be able to send someone to your website and get them started on mining this gold. If you're listening to me, you're like, Andy, I'm just lost my job. I have no money. I mean, I have so many ideas. I'm going to podcast more often. I'm going to send out more stuff to everybody. For now, if you believe that there's probably people out there that you know or people that they know, think about 2 degrees of separation, that you might be 2 people away from an awesome solution of abundance rather than scarcity. And Bryan said that you have some just free stuff, downloadable stuff that people can talk about making these first impressions and networking your network. Would you share that with us a little bit about what we can get and how you can help us?
I would love to. So I love how you set that up. If you guys didn't catch that, these gifts are for you and for you to give to someone else. So do not hold on to them as your own. They are yours, these 2 gifts I'm going to give you, but they're also for you to pass on, okay? Number 1 gift is I'm so excited to give this to you. I'm not asking for any money, by the way, just so make this clear. Just go to where Andy said, BryanThayer.com, and look for on that homepage a PDF that you can download called Network Your Network. Andy, this is so exciting. This little it may be 2-page PDF. Just walk through. Do what I say. Do what I say. I'm going to help you network 5 to 10 of your friends, and they will network you. Just do what I say in that PDF. It's called Network Your Network. It is awesome. Literally 40 minutes before this call, I was a recipient of doing what I'm teaching you on this PDF, how to network your network. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is this. I did tell you that I have a company, and we do send out personal cards for people. And it is fantastic, okay? Because you can send a card to someone, and they'll hold on to it for about 17 days. It's sometimes much better to get a card in the mail than a phone call or even a text. But here's what I'm going to give to everybody listening, and I want you to pass this on to your friends. Go to pixingo.com/free. Pixing.com free, and I'm going to let you send your first card to anyone in the United States for free.
I want to get that out right. Yeah. That's pixingo.com/free. Pixingo. All right.
Pixingo. Yeah, and you can send it to anyone in the country. We will print the card, type in what you say you want the card to say inside, and mail it with in an envelope with a real stamp to anyone. Think of who you can touch right now. Words of comfort or encouragement or congratulations or I love you, whatever it is. Take me up on that and watch what happens.
Fantastic, Bryan. We've been speaking with my dear friend, mentor, and confidant, Bryan Thayer. We've known each other 30 years. We've done we have so many great memories together. I mean, what's sad is, we even saw the movie Contagion together with our wives. Is that just sad that, that's who I went to see that movie with, right?
That's
crazy stuff. So it's a little surreal, I know, for everyone. The emotions are high. I know the fear is high. I'm going to be doing podcasts to help you deal with this fear, to give you information, ideas. And the first order business is, what are your resources? One of them is your network. The most important asset we have right now is each other. And so with that, I thank you, Bryan, again for coming on the podcast. I hope you'll come back again soon. Check out his books, 1 Minute Networker, Life Leaves Clues. Send a free card, pixingo.com. And then at BryanThayer.com, you can get that PDF. We'll be looking for it. Where do I start? How do I get out and start networking? If I've lost my job, is there someone that helped me start that business I always wanted? if you're in a position to help someone, well, how do you best start helping people? Some of us are everyone's in a different situation. Lift someone up and ask help to be lifted up, and let's be together as a human family. Bryan, any last thing you want to say before we close?
No, listen, I want to say this to everybody. What an advantage you have being connected to Andy. So stay with him. Listen to his words, because he gets it. He gets what's going on in your life and how he can help you. He is an amazing individual. Sorry, I had to say that, Andy, but I had to.
Don't embarrass me. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. This has been the Cashflow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. This is where we make investing and hopefully entrepreneurship and networking simple. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Cashflow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner. For more information on investing made easy, go to thecashflowacademy.com.